Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, Cyril Gerald Quinn, episode 880 of the Real Deal podcast. Hope everybody out there is having a great week, getting ready for the weekend as we discuss the penultimate episode. I'm proud of myself because that's not an easy word. The penultimate episode of the hit series Snowfall season 6, episode 9, Sacrifice. So we saw a number again a few characters with make sacrifices, but no one made the bigger sacrifice than what Sissy Saint did at the end of the episode. We'll talk about that. But a quick recap of what transpired. So we see Oso gets his freedom for now. We'll see. Hopefully, Oso gets away. We see Louis on the lam. Um, we see Franklin, of course, still is out $73 million. And Teddy Mack, rest in peace, Teddy Mack. He meets his demise at the hands of one Sissy Saint. We'll deep dive that. Themes, desperation, and I own you. We'll definitely flush out I own you over the course of the podcast, in particular the deep dive. Desperation. I mean, Franklin mentions it. We see Sissy show desperate, her desperation. Of course, Teddy, you know, Teddy's being Teddy. I don't know if Teddy used some of his wit and smarts to almost get himself out of a situation before Sissy Saint took care of it. But again, no one is more desperate than one Franklin Saint. You see Veronique also, uh, showing a lot of showing her desperation with what's going on with their money situation. She completely is on board with Franklin. Like if there was any doubt, which I don't think there was, considering after she had left her mom, from going and not going on the plane with her mom, I thought that sealed the deal as far as Veronique being with Franklin. But I mean, she's 10 toes down considering what some of her actions from last night. So those are the two themes. We'll talk about those over the course of the podcast. Let's get right into it. Deep dive. Teddy and Franklin. This entire we can take the entire interrogation between Franklin and Teddy, in particular the last part. Um, this was similar to the death of Jerome. Um, this interrogation was really 6 seasons in the making. These two characters during this interrogation, and there was so much subtext during this interrogation, and it told you these two characters really showed their vulnerability towards one another. And for the first time, I think, in terms of the entire series, these two characters were basically completely honest with their thoughts and feelings about one another. Um, Teddy basically tells Franklin after Franklin has tortured him with with the Russian roulette, and beyond, even going beyond that with the hot oil, burning them with the hot oil, which was an idea from Veronique, or the hot grease. Um, Teddy finally comes clean to Franklin about basically saying, "Look, I own you. You only had what you had because of me. I took the $73 million because I could. Okay, I could tell you, because I could, and I wanted to hurt you, uh, because you left me. Remember, season 5, towards the last part of season 5, Franklin said that he was walking away from Teddy and was going to do his own thing with his businesses and what have you. And then that's, of course, when Teddy went and with Louis went and made a deal with Teddy, which set off, of course, a number of events that led into this season. But that, I mean, Teddy at his core was hurt by Franklin leaving him uh, somewhat high and dry. But this was all about, this was white privilege in regards to Teddy. This was power in regards to Teddy. This was Franklin really telling Teddy, saying to Teddy, I'm not that 17-year-old that you met 6 or 7 years ago, whatever. Like I know who you are. I know what you're about. I know like I'm not a kid. Like don't bullshit me about the country and about needing about the you're doing it for for the country or for God or for anybody else. You're doing it because you can. You're doing it because you think I'm beneath you. Franklin mentions you could have left me with 5 million. I still would have came after you, but you could have left me with something. But you wanted to do this just because to leave me with absolutely nothing, and to completely just demean my human existence. At the same time, um, that anger that Franklin has was equaled in terms of hurt as well. Franklin, mentions during that scene, I thought that we were developing into it was a partnership, which it never was. Um, Maybe in his mind, but not, of course, not in Teddy's mind. I thought that one day we have barbecues and things of that nature where we could be really really friends, which was again naive of Franklin, but he was hurt, obviously devastated by anybody losing $73 million is going to be shattered. But the idea that I thought you were somewhat my friend, and you see him almost come to tears towards the latter part of the scene when Teddy was finally able to convince him, let's split the money 50-50, and I'll tell you the account numbers and what have you. So you saw these two characters completely um, go deep in terms of their vulnerability and completely open themselves up like they have with each other, like they had never had with each other. It always was about they always over the course of the series were playing chess against each other, especially the last couple seasons, especially from seasons 3 to till now on. First 2 seasons, Franklin is completely green. He doesn't really know what Teddy is all about. Like I would say he didn't. I mean, he didn't. I don't know. I don't think he ever completely trusted Teddy, but the first 2 seasons, he kind of like he was under Teddy's thumb to a point to where he wasn't even looking at how. I don't think he even understood how dangerous Teddy was and or how Teddy was using him. So again, he was young in the game, just learned the game. I would say season 3 on, he's been on Teddy McDonald, knowing who he what he is, especially when what changed when Alton came back into Franklin's life, and Alton cleaned himself up, and then the Black Panther, that whole storyline with from that standpoint, that really kind of opened Franklin's eyes to what the government, what they're doing with the drugs, bringing in drugs, and open Franklin's eyes to what was the big picture. So you see these two characters. Again, this wasn't their last scene together, but this was like again, this was one of the this was a legit. Again, this was a legit top 5 scene in Snowfall history. It was legitimately top 5 because both actors, Carter Hudson plays Teddy, of course, and Damson Idris were completely on top of their games throughout. Again, you saw the anger, the vulnerability, the just arrogance and narcissism from Teddy Mack. Like you only had this because I gave it to you. Like you're meaningless with you basically wasn't shit without me. In essence, that's what he was saying. In essence, that's what he was saying. And I just thought about this. You remember the thing that pissed Sissy off at the beginning of the season about Teddy. She says he didn't kill me because he let me go because he didn't think that I was a threat at all, that he thought nothing of me. And she was right. At the end of the day, Teddy McDonald thought nothing of the Saint family. They were just pawns in his grand scheme and what he was trying to get accomplished, that just happened to get rich and what have you. And he, again, Teddy represents the system. He represents the government. He represents the system that, has been shitting on black people for, forever. And it, that this scene told that told that entire story of basically told the entire story of Teddy and Franklin in about, I think the scene was about 5 minutes or so, maybe shorter, maybe longer than 5 minutes. But that scene told you everything you need to know in regards to these two characters. Um, so that that is the deep dive. Those two characters really giving you really kind of was a history lesson between those two characters. Franklin there was a callback to Franklin bringing up Teddy, basically T-boning his car and kidnapping him, tased him, kidnapped him. Um, and Franklin said, "Hey, you could have just introduced yourself and said, hey, when are we going to be able to do business and what have you?" And Teddy, goes and says, I want to test you and I need to know that you were ready and so on and so on. And basically, again, Franklin called him on his bullshit and said, "No, you didn't do that because that's not the reason why you did that. You did it because you could do it, and because he had that type of power over Franklin, especially at that time. That was season two when that incident happened when that happened early in season two. At that when he kidnapped Franklin and Leon and basically and put them in that dungeon. So it was some role reversal because he kidnaps in season two. You see Franklin and Leon get kidnapped by Teddy. Now, fast forward, you have Franklin along with also kidnapped Teddy, and then also Leon was there. Leon and Sissy joined, wherever to Leon and Sissy joined along once they were settled in that dark whatever, just nowhere, man, basically nowhere land. So it was a role reversal. Franklin made it a point to let Teddy Mack know that he was the nigga this time, that he was on the other side of that, and he didn't have the control and power that he's had over Franklin for the past 6 seasons. Best scenes, Sissy and Franklin. So there were a couple of Sissy Franklin scenes. The last one to me was the one that jumped out. So Franklin's made the deal with Teddy. Teddy talks his way into splitting the $37 million with Franklin. They talks Franklin into, hey, let's split it up. Um, Franklin, says tells Sissy, hey, it's worth the risk. And of course, Sissy was married to a Black Panther. She understands the game better in terms of the government, in terms of what this is all about, as well as anyone being married to Alden, just being a part of that, of that kind of like that somewhat that Black Power movement in the 70s and what have you. And she knows that there's no way that Teddy is going to let Franklin walk away with $37 million after he's tortured him, kidnapped him, killed his father, um, and took $37 million. Even though it originally was Franklin's money, Teddy had the mindset that all along that was his money. So in Teddy's mind, that's $37 million out of his. That's $37 million out of his pocket. Not so much being $37 million out of Franklin's pocket. So Sissy knows that there was no way in the world that even had that he had lived to make that transaction, and that the accounts had reached Franklin's the money had reached Franklin's account, that there was no, Franklin would never ever be free. Like not with $37 million, not with $100 million, not with $1 billion. It just wasn't going to happen. Like he was going to be you kidnap a CIA agent, torture him. You kidnap a KGB agent, and you kidnap a KGB agent like that. It just wasn't going to work out. Like it wasn't like that. And Sissy knows this. So Sissy knows that she tries to talk him out of it, out of making the deal with Teddy and following through on the exchange with Teddy and Teddy's handler. And Franklin basically and Leon backs her up, saying, "Hey, if you go down this road, you're basically going into hell, and you might not be able to pull yourself up from that." Franklin references God, men of power, Carnegie, Mellon, Rockefeller, guys who had to take power by any means, and the difference is those guys were white men. Franklin is not. So that's basically what that's basically what Sissy is tells Franklin in a sense, without you saying those, without using that exact dialogue. So you have Sissy try to talk Franklin out of it. She's not able to. Franklin tells Sissy and Leon, I wouldn't, and I should have put Leon's name here too because he was part of that scene. She tells Franklin, look, and this is when Veronique tries to jump in and says it's worth it. And she tells her basically to shut up. Um, and she tells Veronique, Franklin, and Leon, I don't want Leon grandson or my grandson near that exchange. She would be there with the exchange in case something pops off. They try to kill Franklin or what have you. Um, Knowing that she was going to have a gun with her, as we'll talk about in the last scene. And she says, after this, it's over. I'm done. We will never see each other again. And basically, can you live with that? And Franklin, basically, without hesitation, says yes. So Franklin is full all in with the money, obsessed with getting the money back. It's not much. It's just with Franklin, it is about the money, but it also is about the fact that you took something from me. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take this back. Like that. Like Franklin, um, just is convinced that this money can buy him a life that is just unrealistic. That is just not like this one. Like he's, even if it's just $37 million versus the $73 million. So since he's not able to talk him out of it, he goes and makes the deal, and that leads us to the next scene where we have Franklin, Teddy, and Sissy. Now, during the interrogation, earlier in the episode, Sissy met up with Teddy minus Franklin and Leon. Minus Franklin, Leon also, it was just, well, Leon was in the premises, but he wasn't. He was not. He was not in the room with Sissy, and Teddy spoke, and Sissy told him. Um, Teddy tried to talk his way out of this whole thing. Said, "I can clean this up if you cut me loose and what have you." And Sissy basically said, Sissy, you know, discusses Alton. Teddy tells Sissy, Alton is not dead. You didn't see any blood, or you didn't see any blood. I drugged him, and he's in I think a Cuban a prison in Cuba, or what have you. I drugged him. He's still alive, and this opens Sissy's eyes up. This gets Sissy to try to talk Franklin into into basically cutting, getting rid of not getting rid of Teddy, but just ending this whole thing and fleeing. So after this, Sissy wanted to just cut loose at all this and flee the country with Franklin. Of course, Franklin, it wasn't going to go for that. So I say that to say they meet up with the handler. Teddy is about to make the deal, and as Teddy is about to make the exchange with the card numbers or the numbers too that will get the money into Franklin's account, Sissy asks him about Alton, what prison Alton is in, and Teddy arrogantly says, what are you talking? What are you kidding me? I was lying. I shot him. I shot him twice. He's dead. And at this point, you knew what was about to transpire. Sissy pulls out a gun, and before Teddy can make the exchange and get Franklin's money, shoots him twice. Teddy dies on the spot. Franklin runs. Sissy turns herself in, and it ends. The episode ends with a busy signal, taking us into commercials, what have you. So Teddy Mack is, so at the end of the day, it was Sissy that kills Teddy. And certainly was not surprised. If you had told me that before the season, if you had told me that at the end of season 5 that was going to be the case, I would, okay, I would have believed that. And in her eyes, Sissy believes that this is going to free Franklin, not all the way, but this was the best possible option, getting rid of getting rid of Teddy, and no one, and that money basically taking that, and Teddy basically taking that money and those account numbers to his grave. And Now, um, what is Franklin's next move? Well, we'll get to some predictions, but Franklin, Sissy does that. She did that as much for Franklin as she did to avenge Alton's death, to be honest with you. She did that as much for Franklin as she did to avenge Alton's death, even though she was infuriated by the fact that Teddy killed Alt. Uh, she knows, and we all know that if that deal would have been what goes through, that there was no way Franklin, like the CIA, in spite of the fact that they didn't deal with Teddy like that, or anybody else would have let Franklin go scot free with $37 million. Just wasn't going to happen. MVPs of this episode, I would say Teddy and Franklin, both actors. Uh, Damson Idris and Carter Hudson were spectacular throughout the course of this episode. Again, and especially in particular with the second to last scene that they had together, with the just them coming clean about how they truly felt about each other in a real way. So both of them are the MVPs of this episode, though some of y'all might say that Sissy was for um, shooting Teddy. I know a lot of people wanted Teddy dead. Thoughts and predictions. Louis on the lamb. So Louis kind of gets some revenge on Buckley, as she had her suspicions that Buckley was paged by Jerome and lied to her. And Louis, when she looks at his pager, she finds out that indeed that Jerome did page Buckley, but of course he was cracked up, getting high on the pipe. So she lies to Buckley about this money in this house in a house and hidden away in a house out of town, and she takes his car. And now she is on the run. The DEA raided her. She got raided by the DEA. So I don't know where that leaves Louis going to the next episode. Is she going to come back in town to try to kill Franklin? I don't know. Franklin's next move. I don't know what Franklin's next move actually is at this point. He's not going to get his money. All of the CIA, the KGB has now. He still has Ruben in captivity, so he still has that. I'm not gonna say that trump card, but he still has that to negotiate if he's gonna make any deal. If any deal is going to be made, I would think that the government will try to get Franklin to give up Ruben to get Sissy off or lesser years. I would think that that would be the move, and that would be what they propose to Franklin. As far as his money and what have you, he's done. Like, he's finished. They were running out of they were behind on their mortgages. Their properties were about to be are going to be taken over because they no longer can afford them. So from a real estate standpoint, financial standpoint, he's finished. He has absolutely nothing. Nothing. I mean, he has nothing. And that's where, I thought Franklin was going to die next episode, but I think it might be a situation where they might try to pull like a wire with Marlo Stansfield, that instead of killing them, they leave them absolutely powerless. So let's say he doesn't die next episode. He has no money. Let's say Veronique leaves him because she's clearly in it for the money. So what else? She might just be like, no, I'm gonna take the child and bounce because you're hot right now and you don't have any money. I'll just take my child and go along and go live with my mom. Leon basically, Leon, the drug business, the drug game is over from that standpoint. He has no connects with Teddy. So I can see Leon saying, "Know what? I'm out, going back to Ghana." Louis on the lam. I can see Franklin being left with nothing, nothing at all. His mom doesn't want to deal with it. Even she'll be locked up. So he could be. I could see him in a situation where he's completely left all alone, powerless, and with nothing. Now, yeah, Marlo did have $10 million, so he did end up with $10 million, but the money didn't matter to him. It wasn't about the money; it was about the power and the crown. So I could see that being. There's not, even though I would lean towards Franklin probably getting killed, I could see a scenario where they don't kill his character. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. Of course, we will be back next week with the series finale season 6, episode 10 of Snowfall. We will break it down. Of course, we have a special guest coming up in a couple of weeks to and I'll just be just to keep a special guest to discuss Snowfall as well. I will reveal that sooner than later, but we will have some things in the works in regards to this series. So we will not be done next week. The week after, we'll have that guest come on and discuss the legacy of this series and their involvement in this particular series. That's going to wrap it up. Have a great rest of your evening. See you next time.